Hi, everyone. This is JB from Boomer Has It. If you're watching this on YouTube, and I have no idea why you would be, you'll notice that my video is a little bit wonky. This is due to engineering work being done in the Boomer Has It studio, which has affected the Boomer Has It satellite connection. Jim and I have decided not to redo the whole pod as it's so good as it is, and we wouldn't be able to remember what we said on it. So I would advise viewers to either switch to the audio only option or watch the video at a slight angle, maybe while doing the washing up. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Hello, everyone. This is Jim Jalamas in Brooklyn, New York.
This is JB Miller in London.
And this is your favorite podcast, Boomer Has It. This is one of our most challenging episodes ever, in which we name our 5 top comedy features.
It's a special edition for summer. We want to encourage people maybe to watch these films that we endorse, that we recommend. And I don't know Jim's list, and Jim doesn't know my list, so we'll see if we overlap at all. I'd be surprised if we did, but let's find out.
Let's find out. So, and a little preface here is there's no accounting for taste. This is one of the toughest top 5 ever. I've polled a number of different people, and I've come to the conclusion that I really don't like absurdist farces that relies on too much slapstick and the characters they're not really in the story. I like more of I would say, parody. And I'm going to do mine in reverse chronological order, starting with the most modern to the most ancient. And that first one is the movie Animal House, which came out in 1978.
Oh, yeah.
And the setup is fall of 1962 at Faber College, which is a quiet, traditional Eastern school. It follows 2 clueless freshmen, Larry and Kent, who are looking to join a fraternity. And after getting kicked out of the elite Omega frat house, they stumble onto the Deltas, which are a chaotic mess. They're outcasts, academic failures, and they're led by the smooth-talking Otter and his buddy Boone, and the completely unhinged, beer-chugging Bluto, played by John Belushi. Well done. Their enemy is the Dean Warmer, who hates them because of their low grades and property damage. And he can't kick them out right away because of their charter, but if they puts them on something called double secret probation, and if they do one thing wrong, he takes away their charter. So he teams up with the Omegas to spy on the Deltas. Now, the reason I love this movie is, I was a pre-college teenager when it came out. It was funny from the outset when the camera rests on the statue of its founder, on some text on the plinth that says, "Knowledge is good."
I remember that.
And it was exciting because it merged 2 edgy comedy institutions, one that would endure until today, and another that would be broken up into pieces before declining and disappearing into the ether. The first being pretty obvious, Saturday Night Live, which debuted in 1975, was quickly emerging from obscurity to a must-see late-night show. The other institution facing a much different future was National Lampoon, which only exists today as a licensing brand, really. But it was a groundbreaking satirical print magazine, as we've referenced in the past, launched the careers of Bill Murray, Chevy Chase, and sadly ceased to exist in 1988. I have some casting trivia. Chevy Chase was first cast to play Boone, but he rejected it because it was an ensemble cast. So he picked a star, and the mediocre at best comedy Foul Play. Tim Matheson got the role instead, played it perfectly.
Yeah.
And a little more boomer trivia, Tim Matheson was the voice of the Hanna-Barbera groundbreaking Johnny Quest. He was little Johnny Quest, which merits its own discussion because Johnny Quest was sort of broke the rules of Saturday morning TV because it had bullets and dead villains and dying monsters. Bill Murray was up to play Boone, but he passed. Dan Aykroyd was slated to play D-Day, but Lorne Michaels forbid it. Lorne Michaels forbid it for contract reasons. Apparently, he kept missing shows because that's what they did in those days. National Lampoon, Karen Allen was the female lead. She went on to play the lead in Raiders of the Lost Ark, but she modeled in print advertisements for the magazine. But
yeah, she was cute.
Oh my God, so beautiful. And a teenager's
great,
heart goes thump, thump, thump for Karen Allen.
That's a great choice. And of course, I remember when it came out as well. I watched it when it came out in '78. It was the year before I was going to college, and I didn't really know what to expect in college. And
me too.
And I wondered if it was going to be like that, but it wasn't. And NYU was not like Amwell, and I wasn't a member of a fraternity. But it was all the more exciting, partly because of our ages and where we were just about to go to college ourselves. I haven't seen the film in a number of years. Last time I saw it, I thought it was absolutely hilarious, and I think you're right. It's a great meeting of those two similar but different comic sensibilities: SNL and National Lampoon. National Lampoon. I don't think it made any films before that. It was a magazine, but there was a sensibility in the magazine. Am I right? They later made National Lampoon's Vacation series, but what was their involvement? I mean, they must have been a radio series.
Point. They made the Vacation series featuring Chevy Chase, who had snubbed National Lampoon initially, but they really made his career in many ways.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Just as another anecdote, Foul Play, which you mentioned, co-starred in just one sequence Dudley Moore, who stole the film out from under Chevy Chase.
Don't remember that.
Yes, yeah, he's in that film.
You lied.
And it jump-started his Hollywood career. It didn't kill Chevy Chase's career because he had a successful career, but Dudley Moore walked away with that film, I'd say.
Well, you know what? Maybe, anyone not English or not in England might want to know a little bit about Dudley Moore's pedigree as a comic actor. I mean, he was part of legendary in the UK in the '60s.
Yeah, he was famous. We can't go down too many rabbit holes here because we have a lot of films to talk about. He was in a famous comedy duo called with Peter Cook. Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. They both came out of Beyond the Fringe. They were half of Beyond the Fringe. Let's can we get on to my first one? Because
just a couple casting notes. I'll wrap this up very quickly. For anyone who had any literary or even like print publications in those days, some of the stars who have the smallest roles were from the National Lampoon editorial staff. That would have been the co-founder Doug Kenny and Chris Miller, who wrote the fabulous Chris Miller stories in National Lampoon. Also cast members of note: Tom Hulse, who went on to play Amadeus; Kevin Bacon as the hapless ROTC student; Donald Sutherland as the English professor; and Stephen Bishop, a 1970s crooner who had the hit song On, and whose guitar gets broken in half by Belushi while he's serenading a trio of co-eds in the Delta House. And that's all I've got on my number one.
Okay.
I turn it over to you, Mr. Miller.
My number one is in chronological order, not reverse chronological order. So I'm going back, beginning with a film that's this year's 100 years old. It is called The Strong Man, a silent film made in 1926, directed by Frank Capra, his first, uh,
What? Get out.
his directorial debut. Of course, he went on to direct uh, most famously "It's a Wonderful Life," that probably a lot of people know, and It Happened One Night, which made Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert stars. They'd already made a few films, but anyway, it's Frank Capra, and it stars Harry Langdon. I think people think of the three kind of kings of silent comedies being Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and Harold Lloyd. But there was a fourth, and that's Harry Langdon, although he really only made two brilliant films, Tramp, 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 and this one, The Strong Man. And it is absolutely hilarious. It's one of my son's favorite films. He had the first saw it when he was about 6. And it's a lovely film. It's only an hour and 15 minutes. It's in the public domain. You can watch it for free online. In fact, if you go to the Wikipedia page for it, you can click right on the film and you can watch it. And it's I have to get out my notes here because it's a funny plot. Harry Langdon was famous for playing a kind of baby-faced character. He was a man boy. He plays a Belgian immigrant to the U.S. who has fallen in love with Mary Brown, a blind woman. They've met as pen pals when he was fighting in Europe during World War I.
Huh.
And she sent him a photo of herself. So they've never met. So he moves to the U.S. with the strong man, the guy who lifts heavy weights as a showman on stage. And he's looking for this girl, and every woman he meets, he asks if she's Mary Brown, and he finally does meet up with her and ends up rescuing her from a town of crooks and bootleggers. It's just hilarious, and it's
Why is it called The Strong Man then?
well because he's part of this act called the Strong Man who lifts heavy weights on stage. That was an act in those days in vaudeville, I guess. And he ends up taking over the act and pretending to be the strongman, though he's a weakling. It's a lovely film. I actually first saw this in the movie theater in New York in the early '80s, and I've been a fan of it ever since. So that's my first. I hope that's be a discovery for people because it's not that well known. And it's a lovely film, and it's very easy to find. The Strong Man, 1926, a century old. All right, what's your second choice?
Second choice is a film called Sleeper, which came out in 1973. Must we launch into the obligatory Woody Allen discussion as a pariah?
No. Let's skip over that and just talk about the film.
Let's skip over it. It's brilliant. It blends, actually, speaking of silent films, there are silent film antics in it that I'm sure Woody Allen must have influenced Woody Allen. It overlaid a sci-fi theme, great commentary on modern society. Woody Allen plays Miles Monroe, a nerdy jazz clarinetist and health food store owner from New York, of course, who goes into the hospital for minor surgery in 1973. He wakes up in 2173 because he's been accidentally cryogenically frozen. An underground group of rebels finds him eventually, but he's in an ineptly run totalitarian police state. And the totalitarians are a little like, again, the Keystone Cops. They're terrible at what they do, and they're zany chase scenes, and at the time, a lot of very funny topical jokes. Have you seen that movie, J.B. Miller? And do you have a reaction to it? And why wasn't it on your list? Bastard.
Oh God, 5 to get it down to 5. This was a millimeter off my list because I love this film. I think it's Woody Allen's funniest film. I saw it when it came out in 1973, and it stands up because I've seen it recently. Again, I have a whole set of Woody Allen's films. It's a beautiful film, and I appreciated your nod to silent film because he knows, Woody Allen knows the silent movie film, and so there's a lot of visual humor in it. There's a very funny scene. He escapes by dressing himself up as a robot butler, and is taken to a factory where they redo the butlers that aren't working right. They kind of take their heads off. He's about to have his head taken off. He's not sure what to do. It's This film is just hilarious. It's just a beautiful movie, and I discuss it in relationship with a couple of other films later in my list. But that's a fantastic choice, and I am totally with you on Sleeper. It's just brilliant. If any of our viewers or listeners have not seen it, do yourself a favor and find it, because it's a treat. And if you're it's one of those films, and this is maybe something that actually any of these films can do, and that is, if you're in kind of a bad mood, or if you're feeling put upon, or you're not feeling well, or you have a cold, whatever it is, these films can cheer you up. I would venture, and Sleeper certainly does that. It's like a medication in a way. It's great.
Uh,
Choice.
well-made point, although I'm reluctant to hand that to you. But yes, I agree.
Well, my second choice is a film written directed by Preston Sturges, 1944. It's called Hail the Conquering Hero, and it's a surprisingly and terrifically cynical film to be set during the war, but it ends up having a huge heart. I think it's Preston Sturges' funniest film. Eddie Bracken plays the son of a the son of a World War I hero, but he's been rejected for service in World War II for suffering from hay fever. So he stayed away from home, writing letters to his mother claiming he's on active service, but he's going to be unmasked at some point. He doesn't know what to do. So he doesn't want to come home. He runs into a bunch of Marines who turn out to be from the same company that his father fought in, and the sergeant of which, played by William Demarest.
Oh God, you're kidding.
William,
William Demarest, Uncle Charlie, and My Three Sons, if anyone cares to
oh
remember.
wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, William Demarest, who is in a lot of Sturges's films. William Demarest, who plays a sergeant in the very company that Eddie Bracken's father was a hero and knew his father, fought with his father in World War I. He takes pity on him and essentially shanghais him into returning to his hometown in a uniform covered with medals, pretending to be the conquering hero of the title. And he gets even talked into running for mayor. Now, so and he's reluctant every step of the way. He wants nothing to do with his plan, but the whole company returns to this town with him. So they are legitimate, heroes, and they don't want him to disappoint his mother. They think that's the worst thing he can do. So it's in typical Preston Sturges was famous for writing this crackling dialogue and setting a scene with several characters who all have different lines and they speak very fast. And I don't know how they rehearse these things, because they're letter perfect in the film. They're just so natural, and it's just hilarious. I watch this film every now and then on repeat viewings. Hail the Conquering Hero, 1944.
I had a friend in film school, and they had been assigned Preston Sturges. So Carol and I watched about 5 or 6 of them, and they were immensely satisfying. And to your point about the dialogue, it's almost as if Aaron Sorkin wrote a screwball comedy, which he hasn't done and doesn't do. But they're really great films, and the social commentary is always. I think of Sullivan's Travels as a favorite of mine.
Yeah,
And
social commentary.
the moral and social lessons that come toward the end are always make it a little more than a comedy, or at least make it very satisfying for someone who wants a laugh.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I like your reference to Aaron Sorkin because I'm sure Sorkin would be very familiar with Sturgis's work, and because they both write different kinds of dialogue, but they both write their own stylized dialogue, and Sorkin has been cited a lot. Often writes in a kind of a screwball comedy style, where different character speaking very quickly, and people have it's very quick repartee. If you could, repartee is a great word that applies to old movies you don't hear much these days, or Noel Coward plays a lot of repartee in those in those plays. The repartee is really kind of I would describe as stylized dialogue. But anyway, that's my second choice. So what's your second choice?
This would be my third
Or
choice.
third choice. Sorry, yes, I can't count.
I'm a little nervous about this one because maybe we'll converge. Ready?
Oh, all right. Drum roll.
Yeah. From 1974, Young Frankenstein.
Ooh, no, that's not on my list. But again, easily
You know,
could be.
yeah. You know why it's not on your list? Because my taste is impeccable and yours is not.
Mine's more historical than yours. I don't know. I want to see how far back you go in movies. I want to see what your oldest film is.
Not as far back as you, and my old movies, I'll hazard to say it's kind of obvious, but directed by Mel Brooks, co-written by the star Gene Wilder. Did you know he co-wrote that script?
I did, of course.
The setup is the grandson of Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein, is Dr. Frederick Frankenstein.
Frankenstein, yes.
He's a respected American brain surgeon and academic instructor in the local medical school. He's ashamed of his grandfather, and that's why he insists on the new pronunciation of his name. The plot twist is that he finds out his grandfather has died and left him an estate and castle in Transylvania. He travels to the castle where he finds his grandfather's secret private laboratory and a notebook entitled How I Did It.
How I Did It. How I Did It.
So even though he claimed nothing to do with his family's past, he reads the book, changes his mind, decides to bring his own creature to life. And, not to get academic here, the reason I like it is it's the ultimate example of a satirical parody. Rather than making a silly genre movie, Brooks and Wilder treated the movie with deep affection. I like a love letter to the 1930s original.
Well, yes, because it's shot in black and white, which was not being done a lot in the 70s, and I'm sure his producers urged him not to do that. But he did, to our great enjoyment. And he found the original set for Frankenstein. The original Universal Studios still had the original set with the crazy lights and so he filmed it with the original props. And it is a real homage. It's a love letter to the original film, which is, I think, from 1930.
Not only that, I mean, I wish we had a cinematographer handy to tell us about how they got that creamy black and white color. Maybe you have an inkling about it. The other thing they do technically, if you remember, they use these old-fashioned filmmaking techniques, like these swishes,
the fades and
to transition between the scenes, and it mimicked that Hollywood golden age that makes it feel even more authentic than ever, even though it's modern.
For me, Young Frankenstein has the most number of quotable lines in it. I find myself quoting it constantly. Could be worse, could be raining. You say that when it isn't, and then it starts raining. It's when they're in the graveyard digging up the body, and Ovaltine. My mother used to say that a lot. Ovaltine. There's so many lines, funny lines from that film. Blucher. The horse.
The cast.
Yeah.
what's her name?
Horace
Forrest
Leachman,
Leachman. My God,
Madeline Kahn. Wasn't was the monster? Was it Boyle? What's his
Peter
name?
Boyle
Peter
as the
Boyle.
monster.
There's a little cameo with Gene Hackman as the blind hermit, and cigars. My brother says it all the time. Cigars. I mean, there's so many lines from this film that
From that scene, I always say, I was going to make espresso.
I'm gonna make espresso when he runs off. It's just those. If there's a special camaraderie, it could be. You could have membership in the Young Frankenstein Club. All you need to do is see this film once, and you'll hear these lines, and they'll stay with you. That's how good the script is. That's how funny the script is.
And I wish I had a little insight about the movie's legal restrictions, because you can't stream it. It took many, many years to get it on DVD. By the time I found it, I had gotten rid of my DVD player. So it's almost impossible to watch.
Oh,
And
I
I don't
didn't
know
know
the
that.
backstory on that one.
Well,
Maybe one of our readers knows, or listeners.
as a film nut, of course, I have a DVD player, a Blu-ray player, and lots of DVDs, and I have Young Frankenstein, so I can watch it at my will. Get a DVD player. How could you not have a DVD player, Jim?
I know they're probably 39 cents online.
Yeah, you can get
probably.
them easily. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great choice. That's a great selection. So my number 3 is from 1955. In the middle of a decade, a rather unfunny decade, I would say, for films, although toward the end of the decade had one of the greatest comedies ever made. But not from 1955, a Danny Kaye film, The Court Jester, written and directed by Norman Panama and Melvin Frank. This is almost nominally a children's film, and I probably first saw it as a child, but it rewards viewing from any age. It's somehow so yeah, in a rather unfunny decade, this film somehow slipped through. It shows off Kaye's great talent for fast talking and split-second changing of character. It's a sort of spoof of a Robin Hood-like Technicolor film. It's made in color, co-starring Angela Lansbury, the lovely Glynis Johns, Basil Rathbone, you may know, who was famous for playing Sherlock Holmes in the 40s. He played a lot of villains, and the stuffed shirt Cecil Parker. There were a lot of sort of castle epics in those days in the 50s. They took these films very seriously, and so I like The Court Jester. It kind of pokes fun at that genre.
And it's a period piece, costume drama in medieval times because he's a court jester, or is the court jester a metaphor?
No, it's medieval times. It's set in the I don't know, 15th century, 14th century. There's character based on Robin Hood. I mean, it's not a metaphor at all. He's an actual court jester who has to pose as this hero who can. The kingdom has been usurped by the evil brother, which is a sort of shades of Hamlet, I guess, in that. And Danny Kaye plays a court jester who has to be, what's the word? He has to be thought into, hypnotized into being the hero.
What?
So he can snap into heroism and snap out of it by mistake. I think it's literally a snap. So if someone snaps by mistake, he becomes the error-bound court jester in a second, and he changes character in a second, and it's just it's very, very funny. And
I'm having a profound moment right now, because whenever we, as a family, we can't find something on TV, we watch the Dick Van Dyke Show, and you and I have talked about what skilled physical comedy he does, and it was an episode where Mary. What was his wife's name? Mary Tyler Moore, the wife, who's played by Laura, invites a friend who's a hypnotist. Yeah. She invites a hypnotist over. And Dick accidentally gets hypnotized to be extremely drunk. It's accidentally done because he's doing it to Buddy, but Dick's paying attention, and a snap of a finger makes him drunk, and his body, so he carries it into work the next day. And there's just a hilarious scene and sort of a mistaken identity situation. But they must have been influenced by the Danny Kaye film.
I would have thought so. That was only 8 years after the film was made. It was less than a decade after the film was made. He would have been very aware of Danny Kaye. I just want to point out that Dick Van Dyke did play some very funny physical comedy as a drunk, which has an odd irony, because he was an alcoholic, and that really undid him by the mid 60s. Sorry, that was a real problem he had. He must have been aware of that when he was
You always have to go there. You always have to go.
It's just an interesting anecdote. Poor Dick Van Dyke. He's still alive. He's 100. He's doing well. He's been seen a lot recently. Didn't he have a cameo in the remake of Mary Poppins? He must have been in that a few years ago.
Is that the one where he actually jumped at age 99? He jumped up on a table, both legs, one leap. Was it Mary Poppins? It was the remake. Yep.
Yes. So that shows his agile comedy chops right into his late 90s. So kudos to him.
A super ager.
Yeah. Excellent choice. Well, if I don't say so myself, because that was my choice. All right. What's your next choice?
Okay. Number 4 for Jim, going back in time a little further. 1964, the film Dr. Strangelove.
Okay.
Was that on your list?
No.
That's very sad. This was directed by Stanley Kubrick. It's a masterpiece. It's of an alternate example of a satirical dark comedy.
Even funnier than 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Much funnier. And what's funny? It was funnier than Sophie's Choice, which was going to be on my list. But
oh well.
It's setup is there's a rogue general named Jack D. Ripper. He's a crazy Air Force commander. He goes completely insane. He believes there's a secret Soviet plot to pollute our precious bodily fluids. Does that sound familiar?
It does. That's the odd thing. That's no longer a joke. That's come true. It started in the early 60s. There were conspiracy theories about adding fluoride to the water.
Fluoridation. Yeah.
Fluoridation. And now it's just a typical one of many conspiracy theories, right?
Well, not only a conspiracy theory, but it's gone to Washington, and the head of our Department of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., believes it. Now there's a generation of people with very bad teeth and bones before fluoridation who should get out and vote in the next election, because
a lot of them were living in England. We didn't. Great Britain, UK famously had bad teeth, and I think added fluoride to the water system much later than the Americans did. And
so
as good dentistry.
I'm going to continue with my setup. He orders a secret loophole to order a fleet of nuclear bombers to attack the Soviet Union. Now, what we know is Russia. He cut off all communications. He locked down the military base. Now, that's a predicament. The U.S. president and his top generals gather in front of a giant underground war room. They have to stop their own planes before there's a World War III. And the Soviet ambassador reveals, if a single bomb drops, that a hidden doomsday machine will trigger and destroy all life on Earth. And why is this film great? Just great. It's a comedic feat by Peter Sellers, who plays 3 different roles as Group Captain Lionel Mandrake, a polite British officer trapped on the base with General Ripper, President Merkin Muffley, the mild-mannered U.S. president who has to make an awkward phone call to the drunk Soviet prime minister, Soviet premier, and finally, Dr. Strangelove, who is a wheelchair-bound scientific advisor.
And former Nazi, although he doesn't quite have that out of his system.
I think he's modeled after Werner von Braun, and
Yes,
yes, it's not out of his system, and
his
he has a
arm shoots
robotic
up every now and then with a Nazi salute, and he has to pull it down again.
down. It's a robotic arm that keeps
Yes.
trying to do the Nazi salute.
I think
But wait, there's George C. Scott as
right.
General Buck Turgidson. It's brilliant because he plays the role with such deadpan expressions, and he's always, up till then, a very serious actor, almost melodramatic, I would say. And he didn't want to play silly. I have a little trivia that Stanley Kubrick tricked him to play silly by asking for a warm-up take, where Scott would play the character over the top and loud. Kubrick lied, promised the takes were for practice, and he kept them.
Well, Kubrick did often go for the gargoyle take. It's one knock I would have against him with a film like The Shining, when he seemed to break Jack Nicholson, who never quite recovered from overplaying, overacting. Kubrick was notorious for doing take after take, and after the 80th take, he wanted more and more and more. And he would, and finally, an actor would do something crazy, assuming that was too far, and that would be the take that Kubrick would print. But with Dr. Strangelove, Peter Sellers is allowed to, like, in a way, overact Dr. Strangelove and underact President Mufflin, Mufflin, and the Brit. So it's three very distinctive characters played comedically in very different comic styles, and it's an excellent showcase.
I'm not to harp on George C. Scott, but he's eclipsed by Peter Sellers, who's genius too, but he just these hilarious facial expressions. He chews gum really aggressively.
Yeah, very aggressive.
He waves his arms, and there's a scene where he accidentally trips and does a somersault on the floor and hops right back up without breaking character. How did he do it? And then ultimately, another irony is that Scott's acting mirrors Kubrick, who's just not known for comedy. It just isn't.
No, I think that. I mean, I think it must have been cathartic for someone like George C. Scott, although he didn't go on to, as far as I know, appear in any other comedies. But he's very funny. He's very funny in that film. But I think he would have enjoyed playing that role. But for whatever reason, he didn't repeat it. He won his Oscar for playing Patton. General Patton.
Yeah, not a funny role.
Not a funny role. He's very good in it, but it's not a funny role. I can't think of him in any other comedies. Although, did he spoof himself in Saturday Night Live?
Ooh, did he?
We can look that up. Someone can look that up. I think he did. I think he may have done, because he was in this film in the late 70s. Where he was trying to track his daughter who had run away from home, and she ends up as a stripper, and he goes to the strip club. This is in the film, and he's very dour and upset, and the film took itself so seriously that I think he may have spoofed it himself on SNL.
The film was called Hardcore.
Hardcore.
It was designed to be hard hitting.
Yes, that's right. Dr. Strangelove, it's hard to argue with that film. It's not in my top 10, but it's in my top 10 Stanley Kubrick films. I'd certainly put it there. It might be in my top 10 comedic performances because Peter Sellers is so good in it. Okay, should I come to my number 4?
Yep.
I've got to look at my list. What is my number 4? Oh, okay. Well, yes. What's Up, Doc? Peter Bogdanovich, 1972. this is one of my family's favorite films. I can't tell you how many times I've watched it. It's Barbara Streisand and Ryan O'Neal starring in, and really it's an homage to Howard Hawks' Bringing Up Baby from 1940. So it's really, it's like a version of that film in a way. I think What's Up Doc's better than Bring Up Baby. And Streisand has amazing comic timing, which isn't a surprise if you'd seen Funny Girl, her film debut in 1968. Streisand plays a zany girl down on her luck who fixates and actually stalks a musicologist played by Ryan O'Neal, who's vying for a very important grant. She falls in love with him, but he's already engaged to Madeline Kahn in her screen debut. So it was a year or two before Young Frankenstein. And she's a shrill screech of a woman who can't keep up with what's happening to her engagement. Every single minute of this film is hilarious and a complete delight, ending with an amazing car chase through San Francisco, making it the film also a great time capsule film for San Francisco, along with Bullet, which came out in 1968, and Vertigo from 1958. So you see a lot of the city in this film. I absolutely love this movie. I'm proud to say I own a DVD of it inscribed to me from Peter Bogdanovich, because I met him. I knew his PA. And I told him that I once had thrown a party just so I could show all my friends What's Up Doc, a What's Up Doc party. And he said, oh, you should have seen the film when it first played at the Radio City Music Hall with 5,000 people. I said, yeah, I would have liked that. What's interesting about this film also is that it was made within 3 years of Woody Allen's Sleeper, which is on your list, and Young Frankenstein, and Monty Python and the Holy Grail. There was something in the water supply system in the early to mid 70s that gave us these really, really funny films. And I don't think we've had such a concentration of brilliant comedies within a 3-year period since then. Maybe you have to go back to the 1930s. Are you a fan of What's Up, Doc, Jim?
To me, it's a little bit too much. It's a little falls on the absurd side. I don't get Ryan O'Neal. He's a musicologist, I think, but isn't he a geologist? Doesn't he have rocks that he carries around with him that he fawns over?
He's not a geologist, but he uses rocks in his musicology. He has this theory that rocks with their different musical tones, if you hit them with like a tuning fork, which I don't think they had in prehistoric times, but his claim is that these rocks formed the earliest known form of music in prehistoric times. Essentially, that prehistoric man played rocks making music. I mean, that theory in itself is so funny. It's brilliant. I think every minute of this film is funny, but
Ryan O'Neal is very deadpan and innocent. He's guileless in it, and she uses this unidentifiable to me New York accent of some kind. I don't know if it's a Manhattan accent or Queens, but she speaks in this way that I've heard before.
She speaks like Barbara Streisand. It's her Streisand accent.
He sound like that at the Oscars, but
he's playing the Cary Grant character from Bring Up Baby. She's playing the Katharine Hepburn character. Although I as much as I love Katharine Hepburn, she didn't have the comedy chops that Barbara Streisand had.
No, not at all. I mean, and diametrically opposite personas,
yeah.
right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, but they're playing sort of similar characters. Yeah, I mean, the difference is that in Bring Up Baby, Katharine Hepburn plays a society babe, which Barbara Streisand certainly isn't playing in What's Up, Doc. I don't know. All right, we differ on this one. It's one of my favorite comedies and made my top 5 list. What's your number 5?
Here's my number 5. You'll have to help me with the date. But in the run up to it, you mentioned Danny Kaye, and I realized this film and others is a dad influence for me. It's the movie Night at the Opera by the Marx Brothers. Can you name the date? Can you impress our audience?
1935.
1935. So he says, fact check that, people. You probably don't need to fact check it. He knows.
You don't need to fact check it.
No, you know. As a boy, the Marx Brothers thrilled my father, who grew up in a hardscrabble West Virginia industrial town. It's a cultural heirloom from him to me, passed down. Um, uh, and as a young adolescent, I think I wanted the DNA of all three of those. I wanted to be a smart talking Groucho. I wanted to be a clownish Harpo. I wanted to be a sharp tongued Chico. Um, and watching the films was an expedition for the family. And we'd get in the car, we'd drive out to a Pittsburgh neighborhood called Squirrel Hill. We'd buy tickets at what was then described as, I don't think we say this anymore, a second run theater. Or I think we still say art house theater. We don't have many theaters.
No, well, certainly don't have very many art house theaters. So you do have, there are cinemas, but I can't, I don't know whether you've got, but the Walter Reed, is that still going at Lincoln Center? I don't know what
This
else.
is New York City, so we still have Cinema Village, but I think across the country, these are all large franchises that play first run films exclusively. I don't think you're going to go to an AMC and see a Danny Kaye or the Marx Brothers. But at that time, when I was growing up, there was a revival for old films, especially comedies. But we'd see the movie, we'd see Charlie Chaplin, we'd dine at Weinstein's for table service deli food with free pickles on the table, and
That's a good choice, and I love A Night at the Opera. It's not. I would choose Duck Soup over Night at the Opera, just for the reason that it's just pure Marx Brothers, um, and Irving Thalberg at MGM actually saved the Marx Brothers career, because Duck Soup, which I think is their funniest film, was a flop in 1933. So they were without a contract, and Irving Thalberg brought them over to MGM and placed them in a film with an ingenue. So there's young lovers, and there are dance sequences, singing sequences. And
which
to
one
me,
would that have been? Because they're all good, they're all great, and I agree with
I
you
think
about
about
Marx.
Night at the Opera. Night at the Opera, Irving Thalberg added these elements to make it more popular to a wider audience. And
What's brilliant about it in a way is they found a way to transition, you know, a vaudeville act into a Hollywood setting. I mean, it's really is vaudeville, which
well, and they tried out what they did. The first two Marx Brothers films were based on shows that they had done on stage, The Coconuts and Animal Crackers. Then the following three um, Paramount films were original films. But with their MGM contract, they toured sequences, comedic sequences, to sharpen them. So once they were ready to shoot them, they were perfect. My grandfather saw the Marx Brothers on stage, and he said that at the curtain call, Harpo grabbed the bottom of the curtain as he was going up and shot right up into the audience and then came down again. I just love that. I love that memory. Marx Brothers absolutely should be on a list of any top five. Just mine would be Duck Soup, but the Night at the Opera is probably better made than Duck Soup, and it's
you know,
got all the sheen of MGM movies.
yeah, and just to stick with this observation, something it's vexed me a little bit is, I live in New York, and saloons across this city are always finding ways to attract people. Maybe it's trivia or they have a pool table. Some of them they'll have cabaret nights, not even titled cabaret, but they'll have sketches that people do. It's not necessarily sketch comedy either. I used to follow a few in the 90s and aughts that were serialized stories that actors brought to pubs, and they would draw a large audience. And the sort of the funny part about it to me is some of them tried to convert it to a film format and just falls flat. And I think the same would have been for vaudeville pre-cinema, people sitting in small theaters in New York around the Union Square
Yeah.
area. That's where vaudeville was centered in New York. And there's something different about watching live
Well,
performer.
you
And
can, yeah. I mean, one of the, I think one of the things missing is an audience. You don't have a live audience. You can see some vaudeville acts in early 30s films, even in films from the 20s, because I've got a DVD of Vitaphone shorts. These were very, very early sound experiments made when Warner Brothers was preparing to make the Jazz Singer, which was the first successful full length, well, wasn't a full length sound film, but it was half silent, half sound. But it's considered the breakthrough sound film. But in the lead up into that, they had vaudeville performers do their act with sound in like 1926, and they are more than ancient, archaic. It's like seeing emissaries from the Victorian era. It just seems like a different kind of comedy. But I think we might be missing having an audience there, and it's not contextualized at all. But anyway, by the way, I love your point. I love your observation of wanting to be sort of an amalgam of the three Marx Brothers. That leaves out Zeppo, who was pretty boring, who wasn't in,
doesn't
obviously,
count.
not at the opera.
Or the lost and forgotten Gummo.
Gummo. Everyone says, well, he was the funniest one. You think Groucho, Chico, Harpo, no, Gummo, who never set foot on a movie stage.
Way he blew bubbles with the gum. He'd stick to everything. He was a walking adhesive.
Gummo. All right, great choice. My number 5, and this was tough because I really wanted to include an Ealing comedy, and I would have included the Kind Hearts and Cornets, in which Alec Guinness plays like 8 different roles in that song. But I wanted to put in a real unknown, crazy, wonky film that probably no one has heard of. And it's my most recent film on this list. It's called Masterminds from 2016, starring Zach, how do you pronounce his name? Galifianakis?
Galifianakis.
Galif-
Sound out your syllables. Galifianakis.
Zach Galifianakis.
Hey, God, Jesus, sweet mother of God.
Why? How do you pronounce his name?
Galifianakis.
Galifianakis. Zach Galifianakis.
The rain in Spain lies mainly on the plain.
Well, you've got that. You've got the Greek sort of upper hand on me here. It's an inside. Speaking of inside job, so the film is about Zach, Mr. G. Zach plays a security guard who steals all the money from an armored bank vehicle, and mostly gets away with it. It co-stars Kristen Wiig, Owen Wilson, and Catherine McKinnon. My wife discovered this film, and I was very skeptical and grumpy about having to watch it, and I literally fell off the sofa. It's so funny.
Ooh, what? I love when that happens.
Mastermind.
I'm putting it on my list right now.
And I saw it again, and it was just as funny. And it might be too over the top for you, although there are films that are often too over the top for me. This one is just hilarious, and it's just wacky. I think it's inspired by real events. If it isn't, it should be. But see if you can go out and find. It can't be that hard to find. It came out 10 years ago. Masterminds, starring Zach, somebody beginning with G.
Excellent. I need to cheat a little bit. We've gone through our 5.
We both have to cheat. We both need to add our also rans, right?
All right. So do you want to go first?
No, you go first, and then I'll do mine.
I'll try to do this as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
But I think the observation I've made is, with the exception of Masterminds, I think you and I picked what I'd call foundational comedies that had been influenced by early performances of some kind and would continue to influence future films and comedies. So I have to apologize to Charlie Chaplin, W.C. Fields, and then another category from that era, Harold Lloyd and Buster Keaton, who were massive. I mean, those films are just fantastic. Last time I visited you, we saw Buster Keaton that was just genius, and for any number of reasons. But for modern audiences, Lloyd and Keaton were massive influences on my one and only kung fu star, Jackie Chan.
Mm.
In his film Project A, he's hanging from a giant clock tower.
Ah.
A clear homage to Lloyd's Safety First. And
safety last.
Right, Safety Last. What a great title. Like
Safety last.
Safety last! Great. Exclamation point. And like Douglas Fairbanks, who was not a comedic actor, and Clark Gable, Chan did his own stunts. So those two, again, using the word foundational, I mean, they really set the stage for the future of comedy features. I left out Something About Mary, Dumb and Dumber, Kingpin, the Farrelly brothers. Just for they're hilarious in their own right. Jeff Daniels' cast in Dumb and Dumber proves that actor can do anything. He's one of my favorite actors of all time. 3 more to go. The Adam McKay, who was a former SNL head writer, who went on to create Anchorman, Talladega Nights. These great ensemble cast films that launched careers. He also made the film Don't Look Up, and the non-comedy Big Short. And a little more trivia, he directed the HBO pilot for one of the best TV shows ever made, Succession.
Yeah. Right. Which is very funny. Succession is a weird mixture of drama and comedy, and there's a lot. And it was the showrunner is a Brit who is responsible for Peep Show.
Highly regarded. Armando Iannucci, right?
No. Armando Iannucci's got nothing to do with Succession. Armando Iannucci is behind.
He was behind Veep.
Very funny. Anyway, can I get on to my list because we're running a bit long here?
Oh, we are. Okay, I'm going to leave out. I'm going to get you Sucka, the mockumentary genre, and the 1967 film The Producers. Please.
Oh, Producers. Okay, well, of course, I don't know how either of us could possibly leave off Some Like It Hot. Billy Wilder, 1959, maybe one of the funniest films ever made.
JB, it was on my mind. It was on my list for sure.
I mean, to me, it was just so kind of obvious a choice that I thought I could afford to leave it off because everyone would know it. But you mentioned Keaton, Sherlock Jr. Sherlock Jr. is my favorite Keaton, 1926. City Lights, Chaplin, 1931. You mentioned W.C. Fields, It's a Gift from 1932 is hilarious. My Man Godfrey, directed by Gregory LaCava, 1936, starring Carol Lombard, who's a bit shrieky in it, but William Powell is hilarious. And then coming right up to recent days, The Big Lebowski, Coen Brothers. I don't know how many times I've watched this, but it works every time. And it wasn't a hit when it came out. It's become a cult favorite since then. There's an annual Lebowski Fest, as there should be. The Dude Abides. But another Coen Brothers film, maybe less known, is Burn After Reading. Did you ever see that?
It's so funny.
2008. It's like a Washington, D.C. thriller comedy with Brad Pitt as the dumbest personal trainer ever trying to blackmail CIA operative played by John Malkovich. And John Malkovich reminds me of the film Being John Malkovich.
Wait, wasn't it George Clooney?
George Clooney is in it, and he's another dull bulb in it. It's very, very funny film. But I didn't want to forget
a great
about
cameo at the end from J.K. Simmons.
Great scene. It ends a great ending, which we won't give away. But J.K. Simmons is very funny and very well. Coen Brothers always cast so well. I didn't want to leave out the Ealing comedies, The Lady Killers, which is hilarious. Alec Guinness and a young Peter Sellers. So many recommendations. It was painful to try to keep it to 5, and neither of us could. And I know I took some time over this. You must have taken you some time to try to narrow it down. Anything close to 5 was difficult. So many great, funny films.
It was definitely a tough one. I put some time. I had to poll a number of people, and but I stand by my 5 for
It's a good
reasons
list.
I previously stated. And do you know what time it is, JB Miller?
What time is it?
It's time for our special segment called
Headquakes.
Headquake.
Headquake. My headquake is actually a redux from our last podcast because we were talking about MAGA culture. And after we finished it, it occurred to me we left out a couple of crucial things. And one was architecture. And this has become an issue because, of course, President Trump has made it an issue. Um, and he actually signed one of those ridiculous signing statements where he declared that all new federal buildings in Washington D.C. were to be designed in a neoclassical style, which all strikes me as a bit Albert Speer Nazi adjacent, and I'm sure it did you as well. And this extends to art in the sense that they've been very hands-on in the Smithsonian, and I just half expect to read about a degenerate art exhibit staged in D.C. as the Nazis did in Munich in 1937, which was an exhibit of all the art that they declared degenerate, anti-Nazi, or not proper, and it was all of the art that we celebrate now from that era. Oscar Kokoschka, all of the abstract arts, from that period. Um, these people in the MAGA movement are somehow afraid of art and architecture and art. And I think I've noticed there's a lot more AI generated figurative art slop on Trump's social media feed than any legitimate artwork. So Trump seems very anti-art, and he's now wants to close the JFK Center in a peak because he doesn't get to have his name on it. You must have feelings about this, being married to an artist, and you're the father of a dancer, amongst other things. This is personal for both of us. It's
It's funny you mention AI slop because whenever I query, my whatever AI tool is handy, there's so many of them. Um, I ask it to provide an idea, anything that's sort of slightly aesthetic poetry. It comes back with the quality of a Hallmark card because that's all it can do. It can't be original, and I think that's probably what's filtering through the MAGA aesthetic, specifically in if you could say a Hallmark version of an architectural piece. I think that's what they're gunning for, mild, and I think Trump has asked that it be beautiful, so it's going to look like something from 18th century Vienna or
Yeah, he
Versailles.
wants to build this big triumphal arch, which is very bombastic. And I think he would plan this when he, was expected to have all these military victories, which he clearly doesn't have. So it seems like a very wrong note at this point, especially because it's unpopular. But as someone pointed out, he wants to build all of these celebrations and statues to himself because he knows nobody else will. When he's gone, there's going to be nothing, no tributes to Trump. But I just hope this arch doesn't get built. It just sounds monstrous. What's your headquake for this week, Jim?
Just this pleasant state of euphoria that we're living in right now in New York City because the New York Knicks have made it to an NBA championship for the first time since I think 1994. They haven't won one since 75. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not. I didn't grow up with a basketball team in Pittsburgh, but I had a lot of exposure to that great team. Earl the Pearl Monroe, Walt Clyde Frazier, Dave DeBusschere, Bill Bradley, who would go on to become a U.S. Senator. They were just legends, and it's all coming to the surface. Their ghosts are all among us. I watched Game 1, Game 2. Game 3 is tonight. The city is just in this state of bliss, and I've never seen anything like it in my life. It is just extraordinary.
I picture crowds in Times Square and some happy Knicks fan grabbing a nurse and kissing her on the mouth.
It's a little like that. To see John Turturro's Instagram or hear him on the radio talking about how great the Knicks are, he's such a New Yorker. It sounds like you're
Yeah,
a pizza
true
parlor talking to some guy. Hearing Spike Lee talk about how he snuck into the Garden when he was 14 or 15 years old. They're just in this manic state. And while we're on the subject of MAGA, Trump arrives tonight because he says he's a Knicks fan. And because of that, there's been a viewing party outside of the Garden that probably draws 1,000 people. And for security concerns, that will be canceled.
Oh, that's one kind of nice thing.
Trump
ruins everything. And he's not, Spike Lee is a true Knicks fan. I mean, of decades standing. He's the real McCoy. Trump is not the real McCoy.
You know what else is special about it, and I'll end it here, is that here we are, feeling a little like underdogs. Our team, let's just pretend our team isn't that good, but they haven't been good for decades. And we're a sanctuary city. We're a very diverse city. We're a liberal city. And all of a sudden, all eyes are on New York right now. And even more, New York is the city where everyone leaves in the summer. Yeah, well, we're sliding right into World Cup after that. So
yeah, well, all I can say is it couldn't have happened to a nicer city. Truly, truly. You don't hear much about New York these days. It's an unassuming, quiet metropolis. It's nice that something good happens to it every now and then. But no, really, it's great. It's a story here in England. We've been reading about the Knicks and the euphoria that is therein attached. That's a great quake. That's a lovely head quake because it balances my my negative one.
There's a saying that has emerged, and I'll just recite it quickly. It's on hats, and you see people quote it in your Instagram feed in large crowds of hysterical people. The quote is, "My mayor Muslim, my bagel Jewish, my Christian dour, Knicks in 4."
Knicks in 4. Well, we'll find out tonight if they're 3/4 way there. And good luck, Knicks. Well, that's all we have for this week. This is JB Miller in London.
This is Jim Jalamas in Brooklyn, and that's been Boomer Has It.